Like, of course we chose it. Um, and I think that's what I love about channeling in general, but channeling her is that the more you do it, this stuff just becomes a part of sort of your knowledge base. And you're like, yeah, oh, duh. Like that makes so much sense. That's why I feel like I know her. That's why I feel like I know some of you guys, right? Our souls made a choice. And I think that's part of the remembering, and part of the journey that we're all on is to remember, we weren't necessarily supposed to show up and know, oh yeah, I chose all of this. I think it's really the discovery of it along the way. And so she's been a really big part of that for me. And I do believe that it's part of my role for her purpose to channel her. Um, but in that, she kind of had to get me to a certain vibration. Um, and I mean, I've said that when I think about it, I'm like, I think she awakened me. And I really don't think she did it. But again, just being around her, um, had that effect. It was part of our plan to go through this particular life this way. Um, for me to be a perfectionist, for me to be a hardcore advocate for her, for me to think all these things were wrong and I'm going to fix them. And she's just waiting. She's just waiting. And um, she had her plan all along. She's just continuing to be had. And she came here. Um, she's the same kid she always was, just an absolute joy. And so, in the third dimension, when I first have her, I'm like confused because I'm like, I can feel all of this from her and I feel how amazing she is, but I'm like, well, I'm just her mom, I'm biased, whatever. But then I've gone through this in my podcast a little bit. Was confused because I was like, okay, she's amazing. This is amazing. I love this baby, right? Nothing's wrong. I can just not work. I can just be in her vibe all day. It's amazing. We never get sick. We're just always like, I called it our happy bubble. We're always in this just happy bubble where nothing was wrong. And I really, truly kind of existed there even before I became aware. I was just in the Haddon vibe. I was like, I'm good. I don't need support groups. I don't need a whole other story. Uh, but then I was also kind of uh I was confused because I was like, in the collective, there was an idea of, well, there is something wrong with her. She has a diagnosis. We're going to label her this way. And I've never liked labels, and now I know why. Um, so all of it was a journey. And I can look back and say, I wouldn't trade a minute of it. And have such an appreciation for her exactly as she is. And that's definitely still something that I think we all kind of almost sometimes I feel like we remember every day. Like, no, everything's perfect. Um, but I think it's getting out of that mindset of, I call it perfectionism versus divine perfection. I kind of see those as two different things. And so when we say everything's perfect, it's not the perfect that you know, the perfectionist you would say, "Oh yeah, everything's perfect, exactly how I planned it." Uh, it's just allowing it to be and knowing in that allowing someone to be exactly how they are. Um, when you allow them to be all of themselves and exactly how they are, you actually see their divine perfection. Um, and when you see that, you just see more. You keep seeing more of why they're perfect and how. And I experienced that with her, especially once I started channeling her, because just being in channel connected me to a higher part of her where she would say stuff that would just click, that would help me understand really where she is as a person and a soul and all of it. Um, and also, I believe that opening to her and channel just opened me to my own channel, opened my own channel to higher wisdom in general. And so I'll have stuff drop in about, like, oh yeah, this is why kids like her are here, and it just kind of comes in, and I don't know that not necessarily even from her. It's probably my higher self or whatever. But I think that it's so powerful, no matter what or who or how you're channeling, that you are connecting to your soul. Really, that is it's so powerful to be open to a higher explanation for what's really all going on here. Um, and if you have any questions, just jump on in. Let's see what else if I wanted to go over. Um, so essentially learning to channel, I got to this point where I was just kind of at this limit of motherhood and parenting, and being like super wrapped up in all the stuff that was wrong, and we all have that limit, and I'm sure everyone reached it in one way or another. And then you start asking those bigger questions like, well, okay, this surely I didn't come here for my life to feel like this. Like just doesn't you want it to feel better. And so that's where it all came from for me. It's like, what are we doing here? How do I make this feel better? And just that general desire for me to feel better in life led me to channeling her. Um, I don't think we know what leads us to what. And I realized that too in thinking about my story. There's so many parts of it that just happened. I just happened to um, meet certain people, and it all read certain books, and it all led to now. And it's really beautiful if you look back on your life. There's always times that where it kind of all makes sense on a certain level. And my point is, I don't think we really need to know everything that we're going through and where it ends up. I think that's actually really powerful, is the not knowing, just allowing yourself to kind of continue to move forward. And I think that came through in channel from Haddon just the other night, that you don't actually need to know what the result of your own power is. um you just have to keep being you, and know that you are powerful in holding higher vibrations, and um but that it's perfect to not know, right? Just to journey through life. And I do feel that I was just led along this path, obviously by my soul, and maybe a whole lot of others that were helping along the way, right? Um, so really, I see Haddon and kids like her now. And this is why I call it living in the magic, because it just is freaking magical to me to take an experience that was so confusing and so mysterious, and then all of a sudden it turns into this really amazing, meaningful, deep, actually important thing. Um, I do I do think that they bring so much, in terms of higher frequencies. And I've experienced that firsthand with her. And it kind of just becomes our life. I feel like we're just sort of this high vibing team. But now I'm like, this is amazing. This is not normal. And it's not normal in like one of the best ways to be not normal. Um, and so that part of it's just magical to me. I think the fact that she opened me to everything that's, I would just say, non-physical. Um, I think that's the simplest way to put it. Uh, and that is where the magic is. It's like the things that you can't see, and then you start seeing them. Um, you start seeing how people connect to her. She has a massage therapist, and they have a whole like the minute they met, and she is like 2 minutes into the first massage, and they were just connected. And I was like, "Okay, that's the right lady." Like, I knew it immediately. Just the minute she touched her, it's like I could see it. And so yes, exactly. Um Yeah. So that, I think, is why I started, so I would say why I started the podcast is I had all of this wisdom and stuff and knowledge from her, channeled messages that I was like, "Oh my god," I'm like writing it down, and it's all, it's like fun. The knowledge part is fun for me, the learning. Um but uh where was I going with this? um I always, once I was like, okay, there needs to be an avenue for this for me, because it was like coming through, and I just wanted to live in that. I wanted to create a world where all of that was actually real. So all of these things that I'm learning in channel, in being around her, that I'm discovering, I just wanted that to be real. So that's why I created the podcast. Danny, you have your hand up. Sorry, I missed that.
No, it's absolutely perfect. And, I wanted to say that I feel like I have a relationship with her, Erin, and I haven't met her. But the energy and the purity and the love that she brings through, that you bring through of her. And here's an example. So Sarah, features you and tells the story of you channeling her, right? In her You Are a Channel.
Mm.
And in that first session where I heard her talk about that, I just burst into tears because I could feel Haddon's energy. I remember exactly where I was when you channeled her. I was in Carmel just a few weeks back, just before the 4th of July. And it was like, it's like my emotional body is so aware of the high vibration that she brings. So I want you to know that it is so tangible and so alive for me that you're living with a guru, basically. I mean, in a sense, that's my experience.
Thank you. Mark's got his the thumbs up. Whenever I wouldn't channel her, she would come through Mark, and Mark would be like, "Okay, I'm getting Haddon today," because you haven't channeled her. Like if we didn't meet for a couple of weeks, she just finds people, and I think it makes sense that you've been along some of my journey with me, Dana, and that makes sense to me. If we're all connected, that you would feel her so strongly. Um, but thank you for that, because sometimes I'm like, who wants to hear my daughter? Like, I don't, like, I don't know. And what is it that we're bringing? And we all probably have that question before we bring whatever it is into the world, right? Like, what's the value, and where's uh, but that's awesome. Thanks. Well, what else? So the other thing and maybe she'll expand on this, and I can channel her tonight, but something that came through last night that was really interesting um is she's like, there are a lot of kids like me that are here, and I sort of have this image, and when you channel, you get images too of, the limited kids that are limited in whatever way. um, it allows them to hold that vibration for all of us. And it was a little bit like, "You're welcome," "You're welcome, world." Like, I think that there's just so much we don't see that they're doing. Um, but she's like, "We can do that with our physical being, and the people that we interact with in our immediate vicinity, we're obviously going to be bringing that love. We're going to be connecting with who we're connecting with physically. But when you bring me through you, it reaches even more people. And it's bringing um, all of her through. And she brings all of her through too, like in her physical presence, wherever she goes, same as what we do, right? Wherever we go. But it was like this next level. She's like, it just up levels the effect, and reaches more by channeling. And that I thought that was really cool. Um, and that's how I feel. I'm like, well, I'm I'm just bringing her through, uh, for her to reach more people and be, that is part of her purpose and mine. And it's always, from day one that I've been channeling her, she's said, like, well, we each have our own purpose here, but they're kind of intertwined. Let's put it that way. Um, and yeah, she's always been pretty clear about that. Like, I'm not your entire purpose. Like, you know, what are you without me too? I mean, I've learned a lot about that too. Um, I've really learned to stand on my own 2 feet from her. That I have everything within me that I need. Um, and that's a vibration thing too, right? If you're always looking I was always looking outside of me for the answers and at everyone else and everything else in my life to guide me instead of me. And then she's like, it's all within you. So, um, I think that's big picture what channeling is about, is just guiding people to their own connection. Um, and so much what I get out of it, I wouldn't do it otherwise, is the energy that comes through. And Dana, for you to say that you feel that's amazing. Um, I definitely, it's something that I feel a lot, honestly, a lot more strongly, even in the last couple of weeks, month or so. Um, and I think once you start opening to different parts like that, just more comes through. Um, and so, yeah, there's just a lot I think that she's here to bring, that she just kind of had to wait for me to get to a point where I could bring it through. So it's been probably year and a half, close to 2 years that I've been channeling her. I started just by writing, and they were really short messages. The first one, like Sarah said, was just, "Hi, mommy, I love you." And I think that was just enough for me. So I was like, all right, that's that's all I need. I'm out. Um, and she knew I'm sure she knew that's what I was waiting to hear. Um, so I got that, and then I was like, okay, this is fun. Uh, and I kept writing until it kind of started coming through faster, to where I was like, that's just kind of a pain to write. And just, having the guts to start channeling verbally, I guess. Like, it's just a different thing. Um, but actually the reason I kept doing it was the energy. So I can feel it now. I'll do automatic writing now. Like, sometimes I'll do that, and I can actually feel the energy when I'm writing too. But when I first started automatic writing, I wouldn't say I felt the energy. I was just more getting the words and, Um, so when I first started verbally channeling her, I was like, "Oh, wow, I can feel the difference between her and my soul," for example. I could kind of feel that. But then sometimes once I was deeper into channel, I wouldn't feel the difference. It's just source. Like it's you're just in it. And I think that makes sense to me now. I didn't really know when I first started why. So essentially how I channel her, she very early on said, "Do you feel that?" This is literally her in channel. I'm writing it. "Do you feel that? The love you have for me, the connection we've had since I was born, she said, like, that's the bridge. She didn't say it every time that that's the bridge, but she was like, that's it. That's the connection that you use to channel. And I come through that. Um, so tune into that. And I used to picture her and I used to go always back to her uh, birth essentially or something like that. But eventually I could just tune into the feeling of her um and I really do believe that if we just ask, whoever to come through, they do. Um so I don't outright hear her. Like Sarah says, it's not the booming voice of God. But I do get kind of blocks of um thoughts and words and it kind of comes in little chunks and yeah, it is kind of like that translation process. Um I find it really interesting the more I come into awareness about it. Like this, the more you do anything, right? But um that we are translating energy and I think that there's so many different reasons you could tune in to channeling and I've had that experience. I was listening to Abraham Hicks for years and not even knowing who the heck it was. I didn't even know what she was saying or um and looking back I'm like, well, and I didn't know it was channeling. I didn't no idea. But I was like, I'm here for the vibes. I don't know what she's like it was just vibrational. So I think that's also really really cool.